Good afternoon. Welcome to how do you get the competitive edge using Copilot. I'm going to talk about here today about some business scenarios, a little bit, recap things. But before I do that, my name is Amir Kaleem, and I have my colleague here, Mona Lisa. We both are part of Teams Engineering, and we work on Copilot, and especially Copilot extensibility. I wanted to set, again, this expectation of this goals of this session. We're going to be a little bit lighter on the technology side and architecture side. We will be more on the scenario side. But I will and make an attempt to recap Copilot for you. So essentially, idea is that let's make sure that we are all, because a lot of people might see that, hey, we already know this thing, but let's recap for everybody what we have, what is on the truck today. And then also want to make sure that you get the sense that what we mean by that every industry is changing. So we want to get to that as well. Couple that with how exactly we work every day and how Copilot is infused into our working and how it is affecting that positively. I want to share with you that as well. So with that, essentially, all this transformation started to occur when we started to digitize the businesses. That's what it's started basically. So that's the foundation layer. That's the base of the pyramid. And it basically changed the economic factors and how we think about the productivity, how we think about our project profit margins. If you remember that in last 10 years or so, more so, we started to say that every company is a software company. Remember? Would you agree with that? That's what we started to say, whether you're in a manufacturing space, you're in a healthcare space, or whether you're in a retail space, even if it's a defense contractor, everybody is, software company. That's what the inflection point we are talking about from that standpoint. Now, everything what you see here about the AI, well, let me say this. We are the Copilot company. AI is something which has been working in background for many, many years. When I go to my local Target here, how much time I spend in front of any aisle, people know me, where I am in the store, on the floor. When I go and do online shopping, people exactly know what's going on from that standpoint. It is essentially bringing that AI, which was on autopilot, bringing it as your co-pilot in the forefront with you. That is what the Gen AI the shift has done. So that is amazing. Now, the pace of that, how it has happened, is really surprised everyone. So 16 years for cell phones to 100 million users, that whole slope is no more, is a gentle slope. It's almost become a vertical line, 3 months. That is amazing. That is what we're talking about. So think in this term. In 1900, and this is estimate, and actually I checked with Copilot as well, that in 1900s, early 1900s, it used to take collective knowledge of the humanity to double in a century. By World War II, it was down to 25 years. With one estimate in 1982, it was around 12 months. Okay. Anybody's guess, it probably is less than 12 hours in today's world. The collective knowledge of humanity. One data point I'll leave you with here is that GPT-4 on GitHub repo, to reach 10,000 users was 1.4 days. Really, really amazing. So mind-boggling, so from that standpoint. This is the whole background. You heard Jeff Deeper, this is age of, co-pilots. That's what we are at the tipping point. That's what is happening from this inflection of the technology. But that good part is that it's no more abstract. We are not talking of Copilot, but people have actually started to deploy Copilot, adopt Copilot, build applications Copilot, and take the actual tangible productivity benefits, right from HLS, from manufacturing, from online commerce. Here are the whole bunch of examples. You can think about that from that standpoint. This platform shift is everybody's telling us that I'm going to get my piece of the pie, how I'm going to take advantage of this new era of the platform. Well, for last 70 years, we've been working on human to computer or human to machine interface. And so from DOS to Windows to Windows 95 to all the way here, natural language is the new interface. That's a natural language interface that allows you that in your spoken word, you can interact with the machine, retrieve not only the information, but put them onto the job you want them to do. Couple that with the reasoning. Now that's powerful. Once you have that information, whether that was in your Microsoft application or Microsoft tenant, but also your external data, which comes together, you can reason on that. That's where the magic happens from that standpoint. One example of that would be Copilot itself. It took us from the announcing of the Copilot to delivery of the Copilot on November 1st last year was about 8 months. That itself is incredible. And not only that we announced the Copilot, the first-party application and all from the Microsoft standpoint, we also opened up for extensibility so that you can bring your connectors, your plugins, your own applications, because your business applications and everything, your data is not in Microsoft all the time. Yes, you're signaling that how you converse with each other, how you communicate with each other, coming from your email, from your calendar, from your meetings, that is part of Microsoft Graph. That is where the Microsoft applications are coming. That coupled with the LLM, which is hosted in the secure Microsoft Azure environment, you heard from Jeff Teeper this morning, that coupled with your own data brings a very, very powerful one. You can build your own custom Copilots. You can bring your own, if you want to do that, absolutely you want to do that from that standpoint. Now imagine, take it to the next level. Where do we spend most of the time? How do we collaborate with our colleagues? That's where Copilot inside teams, coupled with teams, now create a thing which you are now in the flow of the work. You don't have to go to a portal, look at something in a portal, come back there and have a conversation with your colleague. We do that right in the flow of the work, invoking that AI, not only from your own, for example, that looking up that document and or summarize the meeting. That let me ask you, how many of you have experienced Copilot in meetings? So that's a very good number. Awesome. That's what our life is. So the people who have not, don't worry about it. I'm going to show you right now that how exactly we work. And then we'll come back and talk about this. So let me play a quick video for you.
It looks like you have a dentist appointment that conflicts with your weekly business review. What if you could do both? With Copilot, you can follow a meeting and catch up to see what you've missed, even if you can't attend. You'll get a notification in Teams when the recap is ready. You can see the content that was shared, detailed notes, and any action items. You see that one of your customers was discussed and want to learn more. You can use Copilot to ask clarifying questions, and it provides a detailed response. You can ask questions like why a certain decision was made, and it provides the context. You can even ask what other solutions were considered. And with every response, it provides citations with a snapshot of the transcript. It's a huge time saver. So that was pretty cool, but the real magic of Copilot happens during a live meeting. Let's say you're in a meeting with your team. You can ask Copilot to summarize the meeting so far. You can see how it summarizes who said what points were made, and it's really capturing the spirit of the discussion. And as the meeting progresses, you can check in on where people stand. You can even ask Copilot what questions were unresolved. It is just amazing to see this happen in real time.
Is your experiences like this? Have you experienced a similar way with your meetings? If we all get double booked, we all are sometimes late because our previous meeting overran. It happens to me. When it happens to me, what usually I would do was that I would need to have understanding because I need to contribute to that conversation, or people on that meeting are expecting me to make a call or give a direction. At that point, I'll have to interrupt the flow to understand that what was the context, what was being discussed. Now I don't do that. Copilot helps me, saves my life. I would get into that meeting, and let's say there's a hot conversation going on that this is the approach should be doing, or that would be doing, and I would say, hey, to Copilot, summarize what last Mona Lisa said, and I have that. Then I would ask Copilot, tell me what questions are open or questions I should ask, and it will give me something. Now I can, in a very productive manner, contribute to that conversation. I have the context. I can make a call. I can set a direction and have a very meaningful conversation from that standpoint. That is really, really cool. With that, important part is that, let me re-emphasize what you heard this morning. Your data is yours. We don't use your prompt. We don't use your data to train our LLM. Absolutely not. That's what we are after. It is extremely important to us that the enterprise-grade security and compliance, which you have come to expect from M365, that is there. Copilot actually inherits exactly what, as an Amir has the permission, or Mona Lisa has the permission, or you has those permission. So those permissions, those access, those are maintained because it's your Copilot from that standpoint. And then we don't use that interactions to train the model as well. Having said that, we had to add another pillar to this whole thing. That is responsible AI. That is extremely important. So that M365 enterprise-grade security and compliance and all the controls and the tools and the audit log and the legal hold, everything which you have from information barriers to DLP, you have to provide this peace of mind that you have that your data is within the realm of your boundary data, tenant boundaries. We have to provide responsible AI. Those 6 principles, what you see there, that we operationalize with these 4 areas when we talk about it. So it is key pillar for us, investment area, along with our AI strategy. Let me show you a little bit that what under the hood, when you open up the cover, what happens. Some of you might have seen this slide. Let me go very quickly. I'm not going to spend more time. Like I said, I'm not going to talk like technology here. But when you're interacting with Copilot, you will initiate that either from copilot.microsoft.com or one of the M365 applications. So essentially, you're sending a question, a prompt, which actually gets into a pre-processing. Before we send to LLM, we basically would take it to the graph. We will go through and make sure do the pre-processing to improve the quality of the prompt, which is called grounding. So we are grounding that thing so that we have a more richer prompt, which we take to LLM. And rest assured that all those, again, responsible AI check and everything is happening. That's where, when the LLM, now let me being a layman here, say, what is LLM at the base level is that it predicts what's the next word, basically from that standpoint. So based on the quality of that prompt, it basically sends us the next. We take it back and we do post-processing and we do ground again check, again with your graph data. Now that we have that clarity and accuracy, we basically bring it back and put it to the application where this question came from or the prompt came from that standpoint. That whole experience, this magic at the back end, and then ability to bring your data either through plugins or through Graph Connector, has led to a new ecosystem. People who have gone on a journey with us. And here is a list here. I'm going to invite Mona Lisa to come and talk about a little bit more about how this whole ecosystem can come together and what are the scenarios she's seeing behind the scenes. Thank you so much, Mona Lisa.
Thank you, Amir. Thanks a lot for reminding us and sharing the principles with which Microsoft started on this journey with Copilot, extended it to Microsoft 365 Copilot, and then we're starting to see a lot of customers, ISV partners, SI partners, some of the logos that you see on the screen, starting on this journey of enhancing their businesses, getting a business edge, empowering their employees, and truly getting this whole M365 Copilot story into their day-to-days. What I'll do in the next few slides is talk to you about a few verticals, a few scenarios. I will also talk to you and show you certain examples and demos of these Copilot and Copilot extensions and plugins in real life. And what I would like each one of you to do here is imagine this, get inspired, think of your own businesses, think of your own domain expertise, and see how that gels and fits in. With that, A quick thing on how Microsoft 365 went about framing our strategy for Copilot and Copilot extensions. There were 3 pillars that we were going after. We were going after improving productivity, unleashing creativity, and up-leveling the skills. Skills of the employees, skills of the business leaders, and ultimately giving that edge to each of our businesses. So that was the principle. I'll start off with a video from EY, and let's have a look at what this customer has been doing to change the way that their tax consultants work.
At EY, in financial services tax alone, we have thousands of clients, and those clients have thousands of projects going on at any one time. With all that data, it's hard to access that in a really easy manner.
Tax is very dynamic, and technology is even more dynamic. And so making sure that we have a data-led, a platform-led, a technology-led business so that we can really unlock and make agile and critical business decisions is what we're really focused on.
We've spent the last several years, possibly almost a decade, reorganizing our operating model. Now that we've been able to standardize and centralize our business processes, we're able to harness the power of technologies like Copilot, generative AI, to be able to provide even more business insights to our clients.
With Microsoft's Copilot and integration with Teams and ability to use the Graph APIs, what we're able to do is take all those separate data points, bring it all together, and then also with our line of business plugin, we're able to let our people get access to all the data across the enterprise. And through generative AI, we're interacting with it. Copilot becomes this virtual companion with just basically asking it a question in your natural language. And so what we're doing right now is we're having our senior leaders be able to query all these databases by quickly asking questions and then generating reports. And if I wanted to, I could click on Power BI and see that in the chart. By having direct access from Copilot to our data, we're going to be able to have not only productivity gains, but insights that are going to be served to us near real time.
And that allows us to make smarter investments of talent into our business and smarter decisions around our strategy as we move our business forward.
One of the benefits of being able to use Copilot through Microsoft is that security is already built in. And so the logged in user only has access to things they have access to through the bigger security enterprise that you have set up, and it follows all your policies in your Microsoft landscape.
One of my favorite things about EY is that we are human-centered. And so what I love about generative AI is it's all about unleashing our human potential, really enhancing our capability, highlighting our technical insights. And we're going to get to do that all inside of Teams. Generative AI is really transforming tax. It is automating, it is prompting, it is imagining, it is creating. And it's the thing I probably love the most about it is unlocking data in really unimaginable ways. And we really want to be at the forefront of that.
The most interesting thing for me from that EY customer story was the decision that EY made in choosing Microsoft 365 Copilot to go on their generative AI journey. And the reason that they made the decision, which the gentleman pointed out there, was promises of security, manageability, user context-aware policies, is inherited, and it comes by design out of box because you've already got a Microsoft 365 environment set up. And that is such an accelerator for customers like EY to bring in their legacy systems through plugins, use our orchestrator, and enable their tax consultants to get their work done better and faster. So what I'll do now is I will do a double click into how professional services as a vertical organization industry can leverage Copilot, M365 Copilot, and extensions. So meet Jeff. Jeff is a project manager. And like project managers in most of these large professional services companies, Jeff leads a life which involves ensuring that customer deliverables are met on time, the customer is happy, and there are no delays on the project. Now this morning, this is a world where there is no Copilot. So Jeff comes to work, and he opens up his email, he opens up his Teams chats, starts going through his email chronologically, going through his Teams chats. About an hour or so, he realizes there is a crisis brewing with Project Falcon, one of their customers. So now what Jeff does is he switches over to a browser, goes into the project management tool, goes and figures out what are those tasks that are delayed, what is blocked. So again, he's looking through a bunch of tasks, trying to triage and get to the root cause of this DSAT that's coming through. He then realizes that the gap is because the customer is actually delayed on certain approvals. And he then quickly sets up a meeting using Outlook and Teams, gets online with the customer, explains the situation to them, and the customer thankfully acknowledges and says that they'll send back the approvals soon by the end of the day. The customer also has some feedback saying, the project team members may not be as trained as the customer wants to. So Jeff gets off the call. He also realizes that while he's got a win, because he had the entire list of blocked tasks, that the customer is willing to give approval, he also realizes that he needs to go to their learning management portal, yet another browser, figure out the trainings that the team needs to take, and assign them out. Now, customer satisfied. Jeff's stressful day is still not over because he has to go and give the feedback and give the report back to the upper management, let the stakeholders know what the situation was. So now Jeff goes, takes the meeting notes, writes the report, looks up at Power BI, tries to understand what were the gaps and what is the budget implication, sends the mail out to his stakeholders and leadership. And then before he wraps the day, thankfully the customer has gotten back and cleared out the blocked tasks. So Jeff goes back to the project management tool, opens each task, unblocks them, etc., etc. So a very dreary day, a very stressful day, with a lot of tasks to be done. Now let's look at Jeff's life with Copilot. Comes into the morning, does not look at email and chat in isolation, but actually asks M365 Copilot to give him the list of stack-ranked emails that need his attention. Copilot, because it is integrated with the M365 graph data, is able to reason through his emails and chats and immediately tell him that there's crisis brewing with Project Falcon. What Jeff does next is he stays within M365 Copilot, but invokes the plugin from the project management tool that's already available and asks through a prompt to find out what are those blocked tasks. The project management plugin tool takes that prompt, does a handover, brings the information, does the reasoning, and gives a very nice view for Jeff, which tells him almost immediately that what were the blocked tasks. He immediately gets on a call with the customer, shares the results, gets the same feedback from the customer saying, hey, we'll unblock you and your team needs more trainings. Jeff gets off the call, stays in M365 Copilot, now switches over to the learning management plugin, asks for all the trainings on GenAI, and assigns them to the project members. Now Jeff, still in Copilot, asks, because he has the meeting notes, right? Remember from Amer's meeting that all the meeting recap is available. He uses those meeting notes, he uses the plugin to the budget sheet, finds out the impact, and sends out the note for his upper management. All of this painful, arduous, dreary work that Jeff would have done in a non-Copilot world just becomes a little more easier. And before he ends his day, he again uses the project management tool to go and update those tasks where the customer has responded. Now, this is what Jeff's life looks like in a Copilot world. If you look at it on the left side of the slide is his chat conversation, where Copilot starts giving back the information, prioritized blocked items. It tells them what the customer should go. So it is a true assistant that is helping Jeff through a bunch of administrative tasks that pretty much every project manager has to do in their day-to-day. I'm going to take a peek into an ISV app that is actually available. It's a plugin that Priority Metrics, which is a project management software, like any other project management software, but they've built a plugin which actually caters to one of the scenario that I talked about in this story. So let's have a look at the video.
Priority Matrix helps teams prioritize tasks, projects, and emails. Thanks to its deep integration with Microsoft Teams, Outlook, and now Copilot, there's no need to switch contexts to get things done. The time-tested methodology makes it easy to see what's important and what's not. With Copilot, we can ask intelligent questions about the work our team is doing. We can ask for overdue tasks, and if needed, we can make changes without leaving the screen. We can also ask who owns items related to billing to get an idea of who does what, all without switching context. To dig deeper, we want to know what a colleague is working on to make sure he's focused on the right tasks. Priority Matrix is a Microsoft 365 certified solution, which means Copilot and Priority Matrix bring world-class security and compliance to organizations already invested in the Microsoft ecosystem.
The most interesting two things that were interesting about this video is one, if you see that adaptive card that opened up, it allows a project manager like Jeff to make the updates inline. The other interesting thing, if you noticed in that video, is Priority Matrix is a Microsoft 365 certified partner. What does that mean? It means that as an ISV plugin that's available in the marketplace, they have been verified by Microsoft to have met the security and compliance standards before which they get listed on the store. There was actually a question that we had on the Hua app around, do plugins or custom copilots, which are third-party applications, do they break the trust barrier for the enterprise that Microsoft 365 offers out of the box? And the way to think about it is each of these external solutions or solutions that you build as line of business applications that you're plugging into Copilot, you as a tenant admin own the showing up of these plugins or these custom copilots within your boundary. You own that because you have policies to govern that. You perhaps already have existing partnerships or alignments with these SaaS solutions. Maybe Priority Metrics is your ITSM, or there is Salesforce, or there's ServiceNow. So there is already a trusted relationship. Now, when these third-party applications come into our store, there is Microsoft certification and validation that ensures that all of those guardrails of trust, responsible AI are met. So just wanted to highlight those two things out as well as answer the question that came up. But if you look at it, this entire story of professional services in Jeff unlocks productivity. It makes things like searching and summarizing, which are dreary, boring tasks, much more easier and faster for employees. And if we look at data, that data also suggests from Work Trend Index that people are more than happy to leverage Gen AI to do these kind of tasks. They're actually seeing to Gen AI and they're seeing to their employers and they're looking up to new ways of working that banishes all the busy work and makes the life of somebody like Jeff a little more easier, though the customer escalation and the heat is not going away anytime soon. And staying with professional services, it's not just project managers. Functions like quality assurance can benefit from Gen AI. Think about creating test cases based on previous projects. Think about ensuring compliance parameters are met. All of those scenarios you can look to either hook up to your existing line of business repositories, applications, or if you have a SaaS service, go and hook up to that and create these workflows. Even for business leaders within a professional services organization, Gen AI, Copilot extensions can actually bring in a lot of value. Things like finding out the state of business, things like finding out where my projects are. It becomes so much more self-serve for these leaders. They don't have to depend on reviews, or they don't have to depend on a chain of command to get them that information. And Gen AI, plugged in with your sources of truth, can actually make that happen. I want to share here a video from Air India, which is not a professional service, it's an airline, but the scenario that they're actually working and building with for their CXOs and leadership team kind of caters to this experience. So let's have a look at the video and then talk about it. What Air India has done is it has connected M365 Copilot used a plugin to call into all their multiple complex systems of records, which are real-time system of records, which track the airline movement across airports in the entire world. What was interesting for them is not only is the information available at the click of a mouse for their leaders, they can go find out which flights took off late from Atlanta airport, for example, in this video, as well as find the reasons. I don't know if you guys noticed, but there was a point in time where that leader decided to chat directly with the airport manager. And that is truly possible only because you're in Teams. Because Copilot is within Teams, allows you to get the information using the plugin, using natural language and Gen AI. And then you can, within Teams, go and ping the manager directly and find out where the issue is, which is hugely empowering for business leaders because they have direct access. Now, whether that makes life easier for the airport manager who gets a direct ping from the leadership is a story for another day. But net, it's truly changing the way our leaders also can perform. I'm going to move across to another horizontal, human resources, a function which is there in almost all organizations. And let's have a look at how human resources is changing the way they work. So meet Omar. Omar is an HR leader. And today morning, his job is to create the keynote as well as PowerPoint deck for his CXO to deliver an address at the employee all hands. Omar needs a day of quiet because it's creative work. He doesn't want to be distracted. So he starts off in the old way of working, looking at email, taking care of chats so that nobody disturbs him. In the email, he realizes the CEO sent him a note saying he wants information on the recruitment pipeline, he wants information from the employee survey, and he wants information on the learning health. So now Omar has to gather the information. So he switches over to the survey tool, looks through the survey responses that came on last month, kind of makes sense of where the employees are hurting, collects that information. Then he sets up a meeting with his recruitment leader and kind of asks the recruitment leader to send him the information on the latest hiring pipeline. Next, he goes to the LMS tool and finds out what are the mandatory training completion percentages. Now, Omar has these bits of information available to him, and he goes to Word, opens the document, stares at a blank page, and then starts thinking about how should he start crafting the message, what should be the tone. He has a bunch of notes, yes, but he still has to write it out. After a few hours of struggling with some writer's block, Omar has the first draft of the speech ready. But remember, he also has to create a deck, and it has to be a fancy deck for the all hands. So he goes over to PowerPoint. Again, a blank PowerPoint stares at him. He starts thinking about how to do the layout, how to bring those points in. So pretty much a day where Omar needs to keep switching between being creative about what he's creating, as well as collecting information. Now let's look at his life with M365 Copilot, custom Copilot, and Copilot extensions and plugins. Omar starts his day with M365 Copilot, asks for a prompt to get him his key emails, as well as check in if there was anything on the agenda change for the employee all hands. It turns out that Copilot tells him that the CEO wanted 3 additional data. Omar then uses M365 Copilot and the survey plugin and does a prompt to say, hey, bring me the latest results from the survey plugin. Again, because this is generative AI, the plugin does the handover to the survey tool, brings in the information, abstracts it out, and gives Omar a working set of insights from the employee survey. The next, he looks at the recruitment plugin tool, finds out the latest hiring trends, goes to the LMS, finds out what the mandatory training completion. He's doing all of this in a chat-based natural language, doesn't have to switch over to multiple tools to get the information. And then he has all the information, he goes to Word and then tells Copilot, based on the notes that Copilot retrieved for him, create the first draft in a formal tone and write out the speech. If you recall, if you were there in the keynote today, there was a demo where this exact scenario was shown where the Word document is entirely filled up. And all Omar has to do is just embellish that text. He doesn't have to start from a blank page. Now, Omar goes to PowerPoint, which also has M365 Copilot enabled, and all he needs to do is reference the document and ask Copilot to create the first draft of the deck. So a creative work that involves some bit of drudgery gets so much more easier for somebody like Omar, because if you look at it, that's what he's doing. Copilot tells him that the survey result indicates that employees are interested in wellness benefits. Copilot tells him that there is a clear trend in demand for Gen AI related skills for no project. So all these insights are coming through the plugin as well as the orchestration that we are doing along with our solution that's plugged in. One example that I want to take here for an ISV app, which is in the creative space, is Creately. They've built something called as a custom Copilot on top of Microsoft 365 Copilot, which brings in this power of generative AI within Teams. So let's have a look at the video and then we'll talk about it. So what Creately has done differently here is that it's not just a plugin. It's actually a custom Copilot built using the bot framework and leveraging Teams AI library to bring in this whole customized generative AI, which is deeply rooted into their orchestration, but available as part of Copilot and Teams. What it does very well, if you noticed, is it's able to get invoked and summarize all the brainstorming conversations that may have happened in a channel experience, chat experience, or a meeting experience. It takes away the job in a creative function, which usually somebody has in any brainstorming event, is to categorize all the information and put them together, which is more legible. So if you see the whiteboard that got generated was actually automatically generated based on the summarization that Gen AI did. So again, it takes away the dreariness from a creative process. There is no longer a blank page that you need to start with. There is no longer manual effort required to summarize anything. That's essentially a creative way of doing work. And that unleashing of creativity happens using M365 Copilot and the extensions and plugins that are being built into it. Moving on to perhaps the data suggesting that most people are actually comfortable using AI for even creative work. They don't see it as somebody else doing the creation. They rather see it as a step up into doing even higher degree and higher order of thinking and brainstorming, getting away from the mundane. Staying with HR, not only somebody like Omar, who is a leader trying to create a keynote, but functions like talent acquisition can leverage with Gen AI. Think about getting feedback from interview rounds and Gen AI summarizing all those feedback and categorizing them for you. Think about sifting through multiple resumes and understanding the hiring candidature. Think about the L&D function within HR. They can benefit with Gen AI if connected as a plugin or a custom Copilot into M365 Copilot to create courses, to go track completion rates, or as we have one ISV called LMS 365 that's created a self-serve model, a self-serve custom Copilot experience to go ahead and retrieve the learning that is important for the user. So all of those scenarios can be made much more easier and modernized and smarter with Gen AI. I'm going to move across to the last vertical that I wanted to touch about, and this is financial services. And we will look at how prep work becomes better with Gen AI. So meet Hillary. Hillary is a financial assistant, consultant, and one of the most expensive resources, right, in any organization that deals in this business. I will not go through what life before looks like, because all of you know the drill, but let's look at what her life looks like in the world of Copilot. So Hillary is back from vacation. She has a pile of emails that she needs to look through. She goes to Outlook, opens M365 Copilot, and asks it to give its prioritized emails. Copilot tells her that there is Northwind Traders that is looking to invest in a new set of products and is expecting an email from her a week back or so. So now Hillary is under time pressure. She quickly looks at the CRM plugin to find out what are the new products that her company has on offer, what are the various investment opportunities. She gets a full list thanks to Copilot quickly. Then she wants to do some more research before she sends this recommendation out. Now, in a normal world, a financial analyst like Hillary would spend a few hours scanning through multiple news sites to find out what the latest is on those portfolio products. But with M365 Copilot, which also has a skill for web browsing, she's able to go and get all of those information pretty much in a jiffy. Once she has this information, she uses the plugin to go into the portfolio management, understand what the latest on Northwind Traders is, and then finally uses Copilot again to find out what the last minutes of meetings were. With all this information available to her, she's able to quickly turn around the email offering up the products that Northwind Traders could invest in a jiffy. And this is another example of where prep work for a financial analyst, which is an expensive resource, a resource that you as a business wants to be spending time only for billable hours, is reducing time spent on doing all the ancillary work. I want to show here example of another ISV app. It's a plugin that's shipped on the store. You can try it out. Victincan, it's a sales enablement ISV, and let's look at what their plugin is doing.
Today's showcase is going to be all about bringing the power of the Big Tin Can sales enablement platform and all of its resources from marketing, sales enablement professionals, and subject matter experts directly into the Copilot experience, spreading that wealth and knowledge across the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, allowing me to get access to answers and content anywhere that I might be working. I can always start a new chat, but as we can see and pick up where I left off, I've already asked Copilot to source some Excalibur pricing slides directly from Big Tin Can, maintained by my marketing and go-to-market teams. I have a brief overview, but I want to make sure these are in fact the slides that I'd like to use as reference, and I can preview those in my window. I can move through those assets directly within the Teams or Microsoft product using Copilot. As I go through here, my next action is going to be reaching out and engaging with my customer or prospect in this use case, where I'm looking to now draft an email for an enterprise customer, looking for some initial pricing around that Excalibur product. I can quickly ask Copilot to use and leverage that information found inside of those pricing slides, as well as the Big Tin Can repository, to get an initial draft and pricing look out to my customer in a timely fashion.
This is super powerful because if you think about it, a lot of time all of us have a sense of we've seen an information in some slide deck somewhere, but it just becomes very, very difficult to go now look for that deck because you don't remember what it was called. If you have a repository like Victincan or any other sales repository, hooking it up with Copilot plugin makes these tasks much more simpler, faster, and in general, if you look at it across the three pillars of work, of employee productivity, of functional productivity, of business productivity, Copilot plugins, Copilot extensions can actually make a big, big difference to how you run your business. So if you look at our data as well, we are seeing more and more people being open to using AI Assistant to take out the drudgery of prep work, to take out the boring work and make work more fascinating and more effective and productive and so on. And while I touched upon one horizontal and two verticals, but the fact is what we are seeing across our customers and partners here in Microsoft is each and every function, each and every vertical is figuring out that unique thing that they can do with generative AI, whether it's hooking up their tons and tons of data and bringing it in through graph connectors, or bringing in real-time information with plugins, or creating even more richer experiences with custom copilots built on bot framework or Teams AI library. They're choosing different tech stacks, if you please, but impacting every scenario, every business, and every function. And I think that is the most critical point that each one of us here should think about as we go away, that what is that scenario, what is that thing that you would want to do for your businesses? And before we wrap, I do want to touch upon, Amar talked about this platform shift that's happening, and a platform shift that's happening at a tremendous pace. It's no longer months and days, it's probably an hours difference that your competitors are evolving and innovating on. So how should you navigate? Very briefly, there are a few things to keep in mind. And the most important of that is that this is both a software change as well as a culture change. It is not one or the other. It is both that need to function together. Now, in terms of software, you have the option of choosing from a bunch of ISVs who have already shipped their integrations or are in the process of shipping their integrations on the unified store across Teams, Outlook, and Office. These ISV apps are also available in context when you're working within Copilot. So you have an option, if you're a tenant admin, to turn these on, select the ones that you want to make available, and then your end user has the option to turn it on in context. Or if you have your own line of business application, or if you're in the business of providing service to another customer, you can go ahead and create these plugins, use graph connectors to pull in data, or create your own Copilot, as I said, with Azure OpenAI Studio and Teams library. Key thing to remember, it's a 4-phased journey. First, you need to understand your own readiness as a customer to yourself. You need to understand the readiness of your end customer if you are providing services to somebody. If you're a SaaS service or an ISV, you need to understand where your general audience is in terms of their journey of Copilot and GenAI. The second thing is to understand what business value are you looking to unlock. Which persona will make a difference? For EY, the tax consultants were perhaps a persona they wanted to unlock. For Air India, they wanted to make their business leaders self-sufficient. So choose and find out which is that business persona or the scenario that gives you the most ROI. What is your domain expertise? Which area do you think you have unique value? Find that out. The third phase is technical readiness. This is not just about building that extension or building that plugin, but it's also about understanding what the compliance framework of your customer or your own organization is, and ensure that you're building the solution within that framework. And then finally, change management that I touched upon, extremely important because it is a journey that we will have to take our users along with us. It's not something that you can spray and pray on. With that, we would like to open up, Amir and I, for any questions that we can take.
So with the integrations, right, in terms of the meeting scopes and high level, does it have to be recorded in order for you to summarize what happened in that meeting for it to go back on?
So let me repeat the question. So the question is that in the meeting experience, you have to record the meeting in order to get the summarification or do the reasoning part of it from the Copilot. So the answer is, yes, you can record it, but you can only enable transcript as well. You don't have to record the meeting as well. So you can, with the Copilot, you can just enable the transcription and you can still reason on that transcription.
Are the adaptive cards pre-configured by the third-party provider?
So I'll take that, yes. The third-party ISV, or if you're building an LoB application, you can choose to configure what shows up in the adaptive cards. Each of those fields, whether you want a single adaptive card or you want a carousel, if you want buttons on them which need to do some kind of an action. Adaptive cards have inline refresh. So, if you recall the example of priority metrics, which had a text box within the adaptive card. So all of that is open for the developer to configure and define.
In terms of just to go off of that, right? So the text box is generating that data and almost like in Excel, right? Almost like a table view, right? Whenever it was presenting the data. last 60 days, right? Export to CSV or Excel and have it generate that within a document.
Good question, number one. So let me make sure that I repeat it so that everybody can hear it. The question is that as you are retrieving the information, you may create a table or some kind of information matrix of that. Can you export that information matrix in some, out of the Copilot to save it in a form of a CSV file or Excel or something like that? Is that the question? Today, no. That's the phase one. Tomorrow, possibly. Today, that table you can actually copy and paste in the Excel, or you can save it. Yes, that's it. But essentially, how the work is going, I think Mona Lisa alluded to a little bit of handing over, if you remember that during one conversation. So that would be handing over to another application, and that's on our roadmap.
Yeah, stay tuned. Build is coming up. We have some exciting announcements coming there.
In testing this, have you run into any row limits? So if you're going to ask for, give me the past 90 days or something from a line of business application, do we kind of just have a specific limitation that the Copilot can summarize the data? Have you seen that a whole lot?
So the answer is, it's a very important question, but difficult to answer as well. So let me answer this way. It depends upon your organizational or enterprise security and compliance and retention policies, right? So the Copilot has access to the data like Amir's Copilot would have access to the data what Amir have access to. If the retention was 90 days set to 90 days, then I don't have access to Copilot doesn't have access to that. Hope I'm answering your question.
Yeah, just to add to that, there is a limitation because there is a limitation of the tokens that we exchange. But that's something as newer models come in. And one thing that's important to note is as M365 Copilot, the orchestrator, we have access to the latest and greatest models. It is a continuous investment that we are doing. So as more robust and more efficient models that can handle bigger and larger token sets come upon, M365 Copilot will have those. So if you've built your plugin or your custom Copilot on top of us, you will have access to lesser limitations as we progress in this journey together.
So just because you mentioned tokens, so how far back can you go right now? What's the extent of that token today?
I think, which is what Amir said, right? It depends on your retention policy. So if you have a retention of 90 days, it's 90 days.
So my retention is 10 years, I got 10 years.
Effectively, it can, but it will have certain limitations. It depends on the nature of the data as well. So it's not a very easy answer that I can tell you, yeah, you can get in 3 months, or because your 3 months worth of data and somebody else's 3 months of data may be vastly different. So the easy answer is it depends, but I think we can discuss more offline.
I keep hearing about plugins and connectors, those two terms, and we talk a lot about plugins. But I was just wondering, it's not very clear the difference between the two, and when would you choose a plugin versus a connector?
So I'll take a first stab and then Mona Lisa can double click on it. So connectors are when you want to connect, bring your data inside in Microsoft Graph, and then you want to reason on it. And plugins are when you want to build your application and you want to go and query your data into the SaaS application or wherever the application is. You want to go and invoke that plugin as part of the Copilot experience, and then have plugin go and bring that data into that Copilot response.
Yeah, that's a quick answer. I don't think we can answer that entirely in this limited time, but I will go back and plug this one session that's coming up, which is the first one that you see there. Highly encourage you to attend that because that will clarify a lot of these concepts of when to build a plugin, when to use graph connectors, when maybe custom copilots may be a better option, what does Teams AI library mean? All of these constructs will get more clarified in this session. So I'd highly encourage you for you to attend that. Okay, I think we are also on time. Any last questions? Wait, I'm just trying to see, the light is right in my eyes, so I can't see. Okay, don't see any other hands raised, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.